depression. So we move into his report to depression. So what do you think about when you think about depression?
Man, that's a tough one, right? So when I think about depression, I usually think about depression from the clinical perspective. And so, right, full disclosure, right, I have struggled with having hope, which I think is really the art of depression, right? Art of depression is not having hope.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can appreciate, right, when someone says they are depressed. But there is a scripture, and I'm going to look it up, I'm going to find it, that talks about how, and it's in the Proverbs, how God has grace for the depressed.
Well, while you're looking for that, I'll go ahead and put my 2 cents in. I think that depression... So this is one thing where I have, in the past, I've been diagnosed with clinical depression. And that's been a thing where I have struggled with that for a year. And it is a lack of hope. But I also think, too, that... And I think that the way that we were talking about in the last portion was about depression, was about... Not depression, but his report.
Yes.
When I was thinking about that, I was kind of like, you know what? You cannot believe his report, which means that you generally don't have a future. Because you don't have any data of what's going to happen other than what's happening presently and in the past.
Right.
And so therefore, if you can't believe that it can get better based on the truth about how things work, rather than the failures that you had before, which was probably getting further outside of truth, which is probably why it failed in the first place, then of course I think you have all right to be depressed, because there's no new behavior introduced in order to give you hope in the first place. So if there's no new behavior, then yes, you can depend on the past, absolutely, to, predict your future, because nothing's actually changed. But if you're actually willing to change, then you can't be depressed or use the past as something that's going to be beneficial to you in totality, because you're different now. You change your behavior. It's not like you're going to do the exact same thing again. So when I don't believe his report, that's when depression really seeks in and really tries to take me out.
Yeah. So I think that though is really the can be a clinical definition of depression. It is not so much feeling bad, but persisting in those bad feelings.
Right.
I think that's depression. But so right, here's what the Bible says. Proverbs, I found it, chapter 3, verse 34. I'm good. 34. I'm in the ESV, so this is a little bit more modern than the King James, so I have to translate some of these words. But toward the scorners, he is scornful, right? So for my kids, I would say towards the mean people, he's mean. But to the humble, he gives favor. When I looked that word up, that word could be translated as lowly or depressed. Now, it's been a little while since I've looked at it, but I recall seeing that word and looking it up and getting depression as a translation and being a little bit blown away. Because for me, depression was hopelessness. But I think that what this is really saying is that when you have no hope, that is when God takes that as an opportunity to pour out his Old Testament word as favor, New Testament word is grace, right? To pour out his grace or his favor on you. What makes that a struggle for God is if you persist in that hopelessness, if you refuse to be pulled out of it.
Yeah. If you refuse to believe the report.
That's exactly correct. But he looks on your lowliness or your depression. He recognizes it, right? He sees it. And he desperately wants to intervene, and not to intervene with justice, which may or may not be a pleasurable outcome for you, but to intervene with graciousness, favor,
Yeah.
which almost ensures a pleasurable outcome for you because it is not based on what you've earned, right? It is based on goodness, based on what he wants to give.
Right.
But not believing that report closes that door, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Or I won't say all the way. I've seen God push through, but certainly it closes it a little bit. It makes it a little bit more challenging for him to get in.
Right. And, and depression has been such a big deal in our society now, right? Like, there's been all this, medications and, illegal medications, to say the least. But you look at how a lot of young people are, and we're focused at this point in time. I'll be 37 Saturday. Sunday. I'll be 37 Sunday.
Good heavens! Happy birthday!
Yeah, and you're like what 87, something like that.
Yeah,
a good strong 87, like
strong,
Joshua.
Yep.
Strong.
Yep.
Still in his right mind.
CrossFit 87, but 87 minus 40 nonetheless.
But young people at this point in time, I think that because they believe the report of the world so much, and the world is interested right now on capitalizing on brokenness, right? So it's not that people are trying to capitalize on brokenness, but there is a great market to capitalize on brokenness.
It is. But I'm going to say that a little bit differently. I agree with that. They're believing the report of the world, but I want to use different language just in case we've got a listener who did not grow up in church and doesn't know what that means.
Okay.
What I have noticed is that the focus of the world is on identifying with your depression and validating your depression, not fixing your depression.
Right. And they use really powerful statements like, I am.
Yes.
Because when people talk about, changing and reprogramming your mind, is that you don't want to say, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that, or I'm trying to be this, or I'm trying to be that. You're actually supposed to say, I am this.
Right.
And then, again, your subconscious hears that and begins to behave accordingly, after maybe several months of you repeatedly telling yourself this, because, again, you get programmed into a certain kind of way because you heard those things either from childhood or you were telling yourself that or whatever it may be. But using those I am statements is extremely powerful to the point where even God himself in the Bible says, I am.
That's right.
That's
right.
So the world wants, so basically people want you to identify with, say, I am.
Yes, I am depressed.
Yeah.
Right. So
surely not.
So the way that I would say that is that, and this is from personal experience. So I say this with a little bit of judgment because I can judge myself.
Okay.
Right. But from personal experience, the insidious nature of depression was that I didn't want to stop being depressed.
Right.
No. I wanted to believe the report of the depression.
Right.
And so there were things that would have made me feel better. My doctor diagnosed my depression as mild. So going outside or going to the gym or cutting sugar out of my diet and adding more fruits and vegetables would have been helpful, very helpful for a guy like me. Mm-hmm. But I didn't want to stop believing the report of the depression because I assumed that the depression was truth and not facts. And so that was what made the depression eat me alive. I gave it enough food to get strong enough to eat me up.
Yeah. And it's so easy to believe it too, right? Because again, you're not looking at a future, you're looking at evidence of the past. So
right.
So the way that I would look at it was that, in my words, was that, okay, I've tried this, and none of them work. Now, that's not to say that's the truth, and the reason why is because the facts were that I tried it. Yes. The truth is that how hard did I try when I was doing it?
Right.
Right?
Right. Or how did I feel when I was doing it? Right? Yes.
Yeah. So, well, I tried to run. I tried to eat differently. You know, I tried all those things. None of those things worked. Well, no, you actually, you did a push-up.
Right.
That you technically facts.
Yes, you did right. You did do a push-up.
You exercised.
But you're like, nothing changed. Facts also.
Right.
Facts also. Yes, you're right. It takes more than one. I can tell you that.
But yeah, that's kind of the and the thing is too is that it causes depression is really the canary in the coal mine, so to speak, about how desperately something actually needs to change.
Yes.
And how much you need to change.
Yep.
Your routine has become so toxic to you and has not produced the results in your life that you want, and it's become normal to you to the point where you think you have no future anymore.
Yes.
Because your brain has wired it to such that, well, this is the routine, but the routine is not pleasurable at all, so this kind of sucks, so therefore life sucks because there's no plan to actually change.
Right. And so this is the insidious nature. So when we say the world, let me be a little bit more clear about that. This is the insidious nature of what I'm going to say culture or pop psychology or even professional, sometimes psychologists and sociologists, that their diagnosis is not sometimes based on hope, but is based on facts. Certainly, the depressed person is making their diagnosis based on facts. And until you get in an environment where someone challenges the facts with hope and with the report of God, it is going to be very difficult to pull yourself out of that hole.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So as long as, I'm going to say that differently, right? As long as your culture, in church we would say, as long as the world is your surrounding and they're telling you that you are depressed, as long as you're identifying with that and saying that depression is okay, then, tell me, how do you get out of that? Right? Who would want to leave something that was okay? I've never gone to a restaurant. I've never gone to Ruth's Chris and been like, you know what? I need to get out of here.
Yeah.
This place is great. The food is delicious. My server is wonderful. My wife is having a great time. I've just got to leave.
Yeah.
Right? Because you don't leave places that are, there's no compulsion to leave places that are okay.
Yeah. So, really, because I'm glad you talked about too about how you don't want it to leave because of the belief of it. But I also think this too is that what's unhealthy right now in culture is that you get so much attention for being depressed now.
Yeah. That's what you mean when you say the world.
Right.
There's no longer a rebuke or a repudiation of depression. It's not right. It's not a bad thing anymore.
Right. And the message is that you're going to have this forever and you just got to deal with it. Or the attitude seems to be like, well, take this, and I've seen where people brag about how many doses of, Prozac they're getting or whatever it is, and how this inhibits them from doing the things that I'm saying this will actually make you better. Try this. It's kind of like, nope, I can't do that because this diagnosis. So in some ways it seems to be almost is an escape hatch from actually doing something different, because doing something different is actually scary.
Yes.
And again, your brain wants to avoid trauma. So if it at least knows a routine, even if it's bad, it's going to go towards that routine. Because your subconscious, it doesn't have a moral area. It just does what you tell it to do. So it's like, let's say, for example, that a butterfly flew in front of your face when you were a kid and you weren't expecting it, freaked you completely out. You ran into the river, almost drowned, right?
Yep.
So now you are terrified of butterflies and water.
Yes.
Right? So, and I'm making fun of that, but that's what happens, right?
Right.
So your brain's like, okay, butterflies, water, we're done.
Yep.
Because it wants to protect itself from trauma. It's doing a good job of protecting you. But the problem is, though, is that when is when your brain is telling you to protect itself from change that can stop itself from harming itself eventually and actually having a decent life. That's where the loop begins to happen right there.
Yeah.
So when we're thinking about, do I want to change and everything, it's about really taking courage. We had a podcast about this, I think it was last week, maybe episode 6 or 7. But we talked about how you had to have a little bit of courage. Not a huge amount, but just try something. Just try the thing that you're afraid to change. Just do a little bit of it. So, for example, I was afraid to start reading more books because I was afraid that I was just going to start a book, not finish it, put it down, and then embarrass myself, and then,
Yep, your wife is going to divorce you, or your friends are going to leave you.
I mean, but I had this scenario in my head, because again, my brain wants to protect itself. I had a scenario in my head where I was at school. It's always school, right?
Yep.
So public schools are great. Anyway, so don't do it. There's a situation where everyone's read the book, or a few people have read the book, except for you. So the teacher calling, and you're hoping the entire time, oh God, please don't call on me, please don't call on me, please don't call on me. And you're trying to BS your way out of it, right? So you just have some general stuff, and then, and then eventually you get caught and you get embarrassed, So, you don't want that to happen around your peers, especially when you're an adult, So I was afraid to maybe start reading books, because I know how I can be. But my coach was saying things to me like, hey, just read 15 minutes a day, or whatever amount that you can handle, easy peasy, chicken greasy.
Yeah. So
even if it was like reading one page, just do that. And just keep doing that until it becomes a habit.
Yeah.
It's trying something different.
Yep.
So I took the advice. I was like, well, I think I can handle these 15 minutes of reading, or I think I started out maybe at 10 minutes.
Okay.
Even less than that.
Yeah.
So,
manageable.
Yeah. So something that was completely manageable that I knew and had assurance that I can handle. So again, even if it's like one page, just do that. If you're afraid of butterflies, just look at pictures of butterflies, and until you're not kind of nervous about that part anymore, and then keep on moving on, and then kind of work your way up until you have one in the hand or whatever it is. But you don't looking at the hand part. You just look at, okay, I look at the pictures this time around. So now I'm going to look at butterflies through my window.
Yep.
And you just keep on working your way up to it. And so I did the same thing with books, and now I'm on my 17th, 18th book. I be reading. I be reading now.
Yeah.
I be reading now because I just started out slowly, and then just gradually gave more and more space to it. So I think the same thing too in terms of lifestyle when it comes to depression, that you don't need to jump all the way in. Be like, I'm gonna be a completely different person come Monday. No, you're not. Your brain's not gonna tolerate that.
Yeah.
It's gonna freak completely out and shut down on you, if anything. So just introduce a few things, and I think the depression can get better and better. It's just gonna take time and work to do that. But you can start as simple as what you say to yourself out loud in terms of his report, and repeating that back out loud versus repeating the stuff that's getting you stuck, over and over again. So, did you want anything else to close with that?
No, that was well stated.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna move on to the next thing, which is life, and I think we kind of got into that already. So, let's go ahead and get into it more.